I want to start today's video by asking you guys a question. For all my zombies players out there, or for all the zombies players out there, what is the main thing all zombie games in terms of Call of Duty have in common? I'll go ahead and give you guys a second to answer. You done? Most people may or may not think, right off the bat, oh, the zombies. You would be wrong. The second group of people would say, oh, well, the Easter eggs. You would also be wrong. The thing I think all Call of Duty zombie modes have in common is the need for a cycle to be broken. And yes, you could argue there was a time when zombies was so simplistic that they did not have the cycles and this and that. Back in World at War, even in World at War, you had Jason Blundell saying, back when they first released Doris, he put that clock in there, doing that same sort of like tick back in time thing, like glitch thing. He said even way back then, he was setting up the possibility of a cycle. And I think this goes directly into what the hell I'm talking about. Every zombies to this current point has this sort of storyline cycle that it's almost referenced to that we need to break. We need to get into and really break down what we're doing and break that rhythm of that consistency, that repetition, the thing that seems to be drawing us back, and we do it time and time and time and time again. There couldn't be a more perfect example than the casual Easter egg in the Final Right. When you're going through the Final Right, the most often thing you're gonna do is immediately go for the power, immediately start opening the bunker, immediately go down into the Emperor's chamber and get the Tesla gun, do all these sorts of things because the game directs you specifically to it. This is where I want to bring in a wagon wheel analogy that I was just kind of experiencing or hearing about today. I want to go ahead and say that there is pretty much a path of least resistance, essentially. And you could pretty much say that's what the notebook mechanic is in World War II Zombies, where you're pretty much directed how to go exactly through the casual Easter egg. And granted, yeah, it doesn't exactly spell it out perfectly for you every single time, and you do kind of still have to work around and put your little mind to work there. But like, there's just something about it. It just feels like it's given. It's a gimme. And the devs themselves had even said, this is not an Easter egg. And for a while, they had been trying to rework Easter eggs, how we see it, into a more main quest as we now so know it in like BO6, BO7, maybe even a little bit prior to that, like going back all the way to like Cold War, is when they really started to try and make it more of like a main quest rather than an Easter egg. And I feel like that even goes all the way back to World War II, is what I was really trying to say here, is the fact that there's this casual Easter egg. It's almost like directed mode in some sense from BO6 or potentially even BO7. I really haven't played BO7 too much, so best reference I could really give is BO6. It pretty much directs you through how to do the Easter egg, but there's also this hardcore layer where there's steps on top of it that make you feel like you're doing something. Also, I'd like to point out that I think these hardcore steps are also there to potentially lead you in a false direction, because what else would make you feel like, okay, we've completed this map, than saying, well, here's this notebook mechanic, we're going to guide you through this main quest, and then we're going to give you this little bit harder version of the main quest on top of that. I think that's interesting as hell. Imagine they're like double misdirecting you in that sense of like, oh, this happens, but then this happens, but also because this other thing happens, aka Klaus resurrects and he goes into the fire pit, blows up, you also get that little bit of extra dialogue like, oh shit, maybe we messed up, maybe we need to go back and figure something out entirely from the start. And this will wrap back around into the whole, the devs have said that the Final Right could be a standalone map, and you could also argue that, you know, by DLC 4 they kind of set it up so that there could potentially be a sequel in the future, but you also have to look at it like, What if the last map was specifically directing us back to the first map, and then, like they said, the first map is a standalone map, so you technically don't need any of that DLC to be able to do whatever we're supposed to be doing within the Final Reich. I just wanted to go ahead and throw these couple ideas out here, and like I said, there's this wagon wheel analogy that I never really got into, but it was essentially the path of least resistance. Whenever you're going along a road, you have these grooves, your wagon wheels. You travel along the same path every day, and you get stuck in the same wagon wheel grooves, and you're pretty much just forced into the same lanes of thinking, if you will, in this scenario. And because you're doing that, aka because the game directs you through the casual Easter egg, that's immediately the first thing on our mind. That's immediately the forefront of our attention. And I think the problem here is the fact that we're giving that so much attention that we're not giving ourselves any room to really experiment and go into some potential solutions here. Because you have to keep in mind, by the time you complete all the Easter eggs, you come back to the Final Reich, you have the zombies character, you have new weapons you can go into the map with like starting loadouts and things like that. You have gear and things from more than likely leveling up, so you have different grenades and satchel charges and, you know, consumables, and you have different like mods for your specialist abilities and things like that. Like, there's so many different little things they could have potentially done here. And going into, like, say the Shadowed Throne, for example, where you literally have to have an explosive that you can throw, or you have to, I guess, have an explosive weapon that you got from the mystery box. But I was going to say, you literally have to have an explosive, otherwise you cannot open up the Pack-a-Punch machine in that map. So it makes me think how many things they did like that are just like not tied into a main quest, but maybe that's referencing the fact that we do specifically need things on our loadout, regardless of whatever that may be, like specific mods for the specialists, like I was saying, consumables, or whether that's like weapons or grenades that we may need specifically. I don't know. I just wanted to run all this out there. Like I said, that path of least resistance, it feels like those wagon wheels for the Final Reich or World War II Zombies in general is that casual Easter egg, potentially even that hardcore Easter egg. And I think we need to somehow veer out of those tracks. I think we need to break that rhythm of doing that same thing every single game, thinking it's going to give us a different result. Like, oh, we need to get to this point in the Easter egg. We need to do this or that, and then this will work. I don't think that's the case, honestly. I think we need to do something entirely different. Break that mindset, break that stereotype of we need to start working on the casual Easter egg. And I think it's going to narrow down our hunt so much, because in all reality, if you don't need to interact with any of this other stuff to go ahead and get started, that would help us out exponentially with the fact we only have really so much we can mess with up until a certain point, like opening the bunker, for example. So up until we open the bunker, we really only have Riverside and the spawn room, and I guess you could say the pub and the lightning rod tower, which I've always found very interesting, by the way. I would like to point out, why, for whatever reason, before you turn on the power on the Final Reich, are you able to go over into the pub, and you're also able to go into the lightning rod tower? For no reason. Like, there's not a mystery box there. There's not, you know, sure, there's a weapon wall by, there's an armor station, there's a perk in the pub, but that doesn't really explain why you're able to go over to the lightning rod tower. Like, there's really nothing over there for you to access at that point in time. Only thing I could potentially think is maybe this is an alternate route to get into the sewers or the Pack-a-Punch room, because as you guys know, we have that disposal chute over there. Maybe there's something we need to do with that disposal chute to go ahead and get it to open without having to press that button down there in the sewer like we know we're supposed to do, basically, in order to get Pack-a-Punch open. Maybe there's a different way to even get Pack-a-Punch open, essentially. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there because there's definitely a couple different things that kind of just ran across my mind over the past couple days. I've been wanting to do a live stream. I just really have not got the chance to. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Let me know what you guys thought about anything I talked about in this video, like in terms of like the whole path of least resistance, just really trying to figure out a different path to take in terms of figuring something out in terms of the Final Reich. And I feel like there's definitely a couple different things I talked about here. The fact that they set it up essentially so that there's cycles, which I never really got into this too much, but by the end of World War II Zombies, there was like this setup for, oh, the cycle continues. But what if we never even went to that map, and then there was no cycle to begin with, technically? So that would go back into the whole, what if everything stops right at the Final Reich? And like I said, the devs straight up have said in the past, the Final Reich is meant to be a standalone map that works into the DLC maps as well for the storyline and progressing through that way, but you could also experience the Final Reich in its entirety, and you would get its own, like, essentially not like a base level experience, but like you get an entire story within just the Final Reich. And yes, sure, every map has its own story that you could consider an entire story, but there's always, like, you know, a cliffhanger, this or that. And the fact that they said it could be its own standalone thing really puts the nail in the coffin for me, that we're not getting the ending that they are expecting us to get, or they're wanting us to get, or that they have hidden still. I really do think that is going to be straight up essentially making the Final Reich fit back into World War II canonically. And I mean that in terms of like the real World War II, or at least the game storyline version of World War II, that sort of thing. I think it'll be something along the lines of, we destroy everything within the Final Reich, all of Straub's creations, including Straub himself, get deleted off the face of the earth right then and there, and then there's no need to go ahead and continue this campaign through the DLC season, essentially prolonging the storyline, leaving it on a cliffhanger to where it could potentially continue the storyline, that sort of thing. If the Final Reich is its own map and we end the storyline right there in the Final Reich, there is no cycle. That is the theory there. And again, that was kind of what I was talking about towards the beginning of this video. Every Zombies has a cycle that needs to be broken. And I'm challenging you guys to be part of the community that helps break that cycle in World War II Zombies. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys in the next video. Peace.